Shabbos, my friends at Kadima Torah's Moshe. Um, Shabbos is going to be upon us very soon, and I wanted to just share with you a few words before we begin Shabbos. I also want to remind you that to join us at 8:30 p.m. on Motzei Shabbos on Zoom, we sent out the link already with this video and in an earlier email. To join us for a kumzitz and for singing Havdalah, 8:30 p.m. on Zoom to end the Shabbos with a little bit of Ruach. Mazel Tov to Laura and Paul Wallens on the engagement of their son Joe to Larissa Marco of New York. They have many years of happiness and success together in Belde Bayit Naaman v'Yisrael. Since it's so close to Shabbos and we're aiming for a short and sweet this week, I'll skip the usual joke or story or cultural reference for today, and I'll go straight to the question. So tomorrow, if you get the chance to look through Vayakhel and Pekudei, you'll notice right from the beginning that though the vast majority of the Torah reading tomorrow is about the construction of the Mishkan, that's not actually how the Torah reading starts. It actually starts with two psukim about the mitzvah of Shabbos. And that's strange in and of itself because we've already read about Shabbos in Yitro and in Kitisa, and now we're having another two more psukim about Shabbos. That's in itself a strange thing. But the Alshich asks an even more profound question. He points out that the Parsha starts with Vayakhel Moshe et Kol Adat B'nei Israel. Moshe congregated the entire community of the children of Israel. And you might have thought that this would be the verse leading into the main topic of the Parsha, into talking about the Mishkan, that Moshe is getting everyone together to carry out this huge project of building a temple, a place for God here on earth. But instead, when you go to the next pasuk, the pasuk is actually a familiar description of Shabbat. Sheishet yamim ta'aseh malacha v'yom hashvi yeh lechem kodesh Shabbat Shabbaton Hashem. On 6 days you can do work, but on the seventh day you have to have a Shabbos of complete rest that is holy to Hashem, and whoever does any work on that day shall be put to death. Asks the Alshich, why did Moshe have to gather the Jewish people specifically for this description of Shabbos? Why does Shabbos need to have this Vayakhel experience? What is the lesson here? Rav Yehuda Brandes explains that Moshe wanted to emphasize to the Jewish people something about Shabbos that maybe hadn't yet been mentioned in the previous instances where it is talked about. When we observe Shabbos, even in the privacy of our own homes, it is not a personal observance, something that relates only to ourselves. Every violation of the laws of Shabbat has relevance to the entire Jewish people, regardless of whether anyone else is participating. Every time we make Kiddush, we are sanctifying the day, not only for our own experience of Shabbos, but for the entire Jewish people. In the context of an ancient society like Bnei Israel in the desert, this is very understandable. Despite the much smaller population of that time, there wasn't much privacy in the community, and people's actions in their tents would obviously affect the environment of Shabbos for everyone else. But, says Rabbi Brandes, modern society is just the opposite. You can be in a public space or live in a large apartment building with hundreds or thousands of people and yet have no connection to those people for days or weeks at a time. You can engage with people all day long, such as store owners, bus drivers, and bank tellers, and yet not really make a connection with them, not even know their name or anything about them, not even remember what they look like tomorrow. We can self-quarantine ourselves unnecessarily, social distancing ourselves for no reason during a regular time, other than because of convenience and being busy. And the Torah is rejecting this approach. The Torah is saying that our lives, our observance of Shabbat is intimately connected to the rest of the Kahal, the Keilah, to the rest of the Jewish people as a whole. That it's not something that we choose to do as individuals, nor is it something where our decisions affect ourselves alone. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, in a Dvar Torah posted on YouTube this week, discussed how the isolation, self-quarantining, and social distancing of the coronavirus era seem to thwart this very value. that while our schools, and places of employment are closed, we now rarely get to see anyone outside our immediate family. And even those interactions that we would have at the grocery store, where we might see each other for a few moments, even those are mostly gone. And we are beginning to feel increasingly distant from our fellow Jews and our fellow human beings. Our daily thoughts, our prayers, and our attention are turning towards ourselves and our own needs, and we're starting to be worried mostly about ourselves and our children and our relatives and how they're faring through this. And it's harder for us to think about us as a community. So does the fact that we can't be part of a minyan, can't learn together in a shir in person, have kiddush together and joke together and have fun together, stand together physically, does that undermine the sense of kihila, of community? Rav Soloveitchik in his commentary on Brachot makes an important distinction between two senses of tzibor, of community, of kihila. The Gemara says that even if someone is davening at home and can't make it to minyan, they should still pray at the same time as the tzibor, as when the tzibor is davening in the big Knesset. Explains the Gemara that this is because the pasuk in Tehillim says, "Va'ani tefilati lecha Hashem et ratzon." My prayer to you should be during a time of favor to Hashem. And the Gemara asks, "Imatai et ratzon," when is this time of favor? When is this time that we can expect our tefillot, our prayers, to be accepted by Hashem? That we're asking Hashem to ensure that our prayers are at that time. It is at the time that the community is praying. And Rabbi Sachs notes that it is here that Rav Soloveitchik makes an important comment for our times, because he says there are two senses of tefillah b'tzibur, of communal prayer. There's tefillat hatzibur. There are those parts of the davening that can only be said in the presence of a minyan, of a physical gathering of Jews, such as Kaddish and Kedusha and Baruch Hu and repetition of the Amidah. That's Tfilat Hatzibor. Those are the things that we say, that we have someone say on our behalf representing us as a community, and that we can only do when we're physically together. But there's also a concept of Tfilah Bitzibor, of davening that is done by the community, by the Jewish people, together as a kihila, irrespective of the fact irrespective of whether we are saying it aloud together. That even when we are davening our individual prayers at the same time, when we daven at the same time together, it becomes tefillah b'tzibor. And it's this second type of davening that is relevant to those who are praying alone at home this week, and that pray alone anytime, and that inspires the requirement to daven at the same time as the community. That when we daven at the same time, at the same moment, when we daven in common purpose, then even when we are physically alone and we are physically separated from others, we are still spiritually united with our community, still a kihila, still a tzibor, still a community of Israel. So even though we are separated from each other and cannot say Kaddish and Kedusha the Shabbos, even though we can't do Kriyat HaTorah, the Torah reading, or have a Shliach Tzibor repeat the Amidah for Shacharit and Musaf Mincha, we still can daven together while we are apart. At 8:45 a.m. tomorrow morning, if you are able, we should all make an effort to daven at once as a kihila, as a Jewish people. We should have in mind not only our own health and our own financial well-being, but that of the many others in danger in our community, in our state, in our country, in our world. In other times, not going to minyan, not joining with the community in prayer could be seen as a sign of our choice to distance ourselves from the community, or even a sense of selfishness. It would be a social distancing that we choose, and that is damaging to the tzibor. But this week, and for the coming weeks and perhaps months, hopefully not, but it could be even months, every Shabbos that we are apart from each other, that we are not together in the physical building of Kedima Torah's Moshe. The reason why we are apart, we are motivated specifically by our desire to keep each other safe, to save each other's lives, to save the tzibur. And so, in a sense, our social distancing is the most socially conscious and tzibur-oriented thing that we can do during this time. So, in the merit of our care for each other, may we all be able to stay safe and healthy during this difficult time. May our community find the wherewithal to support each other through a very, very challenging economic period, to daven for each other's well-being. And may we soon be able to join together physically and spiritually in our new shul building, Me'eretz Hashem, and eventually in the Beit HaMikdash, in the temple in Jerusalem, speedily in our days. Good Shabbos, stay safe, and I hope to see you soon. Good Shabbos.